Good evening. We're reading aloud No More Silence by Carolyn Burkholder. Page 43. September 20, 2005. My counselor, Elaine, said she thinks it would be best for Marvin and I to tell my family of origin I was sexually abused and state that there will be no touching nor teasing when the family gets together. I could not fathom telling this to Charles and Merlin. So I asked Dad about it. He said he'd talk to them. When I told Gerald, he said he knew. I said that isn't possible because I had never breathed a word about it to him. We got together in Alberta. Charles and Merlin treated me with kid gloves. That made me nervous because I had to wonder what they were thinking. But it was so much better for me. I never dreamed that having my family know my secret would bring peace. I didn't have to worry at all about my brother coming up behind me, nor tickling my sides, or anything unpleasant, thank God. Elaine is my best friend now. I can talk to her about anything. She never pressures me. Plus, she has some answers. Whenever I get frustrated at Marvin, I can call her and talk. I don't feel ashamed or condemned. It always helps me. And after talking with her, I can usually understand Marvin better. There are some days I don't want to go to my appointments because I don't want to face some of the dark, scary areas she's going to address. However, I find I never leave the building feeling that way. After talking with her, I feel empowered and like I have lost weight. The day looks more beautiful. I could even shout and dance. And I don't feel as tired. I don't remember when I started feeling tired all the time first. Maybe I've been this way since the time I was a baby. I know it has been this way since I was an adolescent for sure. I have to lie down for a couple of hours every afternoon. About the only time I don't feel tired is for an hour in the morning and an hour in the late afternoon. Most times I can fend it off. But sometimes I feel so tired that I am physically sick. I have to get my sleep. The older I'm getting, the more I learn to live with it and not feel embarrassed about my tiredness. My licensed professional counselor, Elaine, told me it's time to call my brother, Charles, and express to him my forgiveness for him. Every week that I see her, I'm feeling more free from my past. I want him to experience the same thing. I phoned him, and after asking for his forgiveness, I told him what going for counseling is doing for me. That there's hope and freedom for him, too. Dad told me later that it's okay for me to be excited about counseling, but that just because it's helping me doesn't mean it would help anyone else or my brother. Why do people protect him and treat him like he's a healthy person? Elaine walked me through one of the memories of a time I was being abused. She asked me what I felt like after. And I could feel the bone-chilling coldness, like I was all alone on planet Earth, even though it had been a beautiful summer day. Elaine said she wanted me to feel God's love and warmth coming down and surrounding me. I could feel it, and it was comforting and empowering to me at the same time. Someone really does care. Another time after I had been sexually abused, I went outside and leaned against the barn, feeling absolutely nothing in my body, staring away into space, and really wishing my mind would snap, so I would live in oblivion forever, and there would be no more fighting to stay sane. Elaine told me again to reach out to feel God's love surrounding me. This time it was his physical presence. I sat down, and Jesus squatted down beside me and put an arm around me. Nothing was said, but I felt the warmth, the caring, and the compassion of the Holy One surrounding me. I felt a sense of healing. I knew he was taking my hurt into himself. I wanted to stay there in that security, feeling the love forever. And so I rested. As I looked into his face, it seemed he was not looking at me, but into the distance. There were silent tears running down his face, and I was comforted by that. We now have a new son, James Alexander. Our adoption plans changed. we adopted from Liberia. We brought him home at the end of June 2006. He's 13 months old. The people who told me I couldn't love an adopted child like a biological one need to know Jesus' love. I'm filled with so much love for James, and I have a renewed passion to help hurting, confused children. We're planning to move to Lebec, California, the middle of August. I'm looking forward to that because there is nothing keeping me in Wyoming, and I know some of the families living in California. I'm excited to be part of a church that works together as a brotherhood. It's hard to believe my sessions with Elaine are over. I feel like I've changed and grown in the last year, and my sexual abuse is no longer a weed that is wrapped around me. It has finally been cut from me. I won't ever forget what happened to me, but it is no longer choking the life away from me. I also feel so much more like a normal human being. All those strange reactions I had were not me being nutty, but a response to my hurt, inner hurt. I actually feel strong enough to continue my journey now without going to Elaine. But it helps to know that I can still call her back if something crops up to discuss. June 1, 2007. I just got off the phone with one of my friends, and I'm feeling weepy. When we were up in Sacramento, California, I told her about my sexual abuse. She said there is a lady she knows who was abused as a girl and held it in for years. She wondered if I would be willing to talk with her. My mind is rolling. Can I do this? Will I be able to help someone, or would I make it worse? I said I would be open to it. I never cease to be amazed. I'm more convinced all the time that it's true that 1 in 3 girls has been sexually abused. Lord, be near me. I'm not completely over this myself, and I want to have the right words to help someone else. There is something healing about talking about the abuse with someone else who has also been through a similar experience. An older lady from church had been abused as a young girl, and she's writing a book. I'm excited about that. It really needs to come out. One day we got together. What an afternoon! We could talk about things that caused us to have strange reactions, and we understood one another. We did not meet one another with blank looks. The most important thing is to talk about abuses and not hide it like deep down secrets inside of ourselves. if we do, we not only kill ourselves, it kills our husband and our children as well. Mom and Dad were asked to move to New York to help out a church there for 2 years. One of the times Dad called and talked with us, he threw it out that Marvin and I might like to move back and house sit for them in Ontario. That started us thinking. I really want to bless Mom and Dad and free them up so they can move and not have to be traveling back and forth all the time to look after things. I want them to be free to throw themselves into the work in New York. It seems as though the Lord is telling us to drop our plans and bless Mom and Dad in this way. They have done so much for me. How can I not be willing to return it? We've put most of our stuff into storage and we're headed back to Ontario for 2 years. Some people think we're crazy, but we feel very much like God is saying to us, do this. We don't need to know what the next step is. All we're asked to do is obey in faith. I can hardly believe we're moving back to Ontario after being gone for 7 years. Dad and Mom's place is on the same road as our first place was. It really is coming home. The children are adjusting to the move well. They know Dad and Mom's house already, and the toys there are familiar. Mom has lots of toys, so I only allowed them each to bring one toy from California. We're mainly attending the New Hamburg church, and Austin has some friends there. They also have Sunday school, and Austin and Shantae both enjoy that. Page 49, February the 5th, 2008. Okay, Carolyn, back up. Last week I gave Brenda the book called The Wounded Heart. It jumps like 2 years. The Wounded Heart by Dan Allender. On Friday when I was over there, she told me she was sorry for not stopping what Charles did to me. This morning, I was so cold, even though I sat in front of the micro furnace. Suddenly, I had to throw up. I called Brenda. She wondered if I have ever thought of confronting Charles. I said, yeah. I told her one of my fears about doing that is that he'll make me look like I'm the bad person, while he does the quote-unquote poor me thing. I also know I don't have my parents' full support to confront Charles. What can be done for my brother? How can we protect other innocent children? We are thinking that if there's some man at Charles and Darlene's church whom he respects and they could keep him accountable, it would be a good step forward. Brenda and Suzanne chose to approach Charles on their own without me knowing. Their idea was that then I couldn't be blamed for stirring up things. Again. However, he got very angry and blamed me anyway for talking too much to Brenda and Suzanne. This seriously shocked me. I had figured there would be nothing in the request for him to get upset about. Also, it was Brenda asking. In our family, that's the way it works. Dad will be calling Brenda and talking to her. Dad and my brother have the most unique father-son relationship. Whenever one of my siblings talks to my brother and he doesn't like it, he doesn't talk to us about his complaint. He calls Dad and talks to him. Then Dad comes to talk to us. It's sad, although sometimes it's quite funny. Charles is an adult, accountable to God, not to Dad. August 7th, 2008. I am so relieved. Something is being done for my brother. And it's not me having to do the work. With Brenda always being the good girl, the folks will listen. And much more will be done. February to August. Then 3 days later, August 10, 2008. Mike and Brenda had Dad and Mom over for lunch. And Dad started, quote, the meeting, unquote, with a scripture. The basic gist of it was that Charles is a peaceful, happy person, and everything is under the blood. End of conversation. Dad said my brother is sorry now for getting angry at the girls. Brenda said she would like to see Charles face to face and hear this from him. She asked, what do they think of Charles' temper? And they said, you know he always had a problem with his temper. It's just a Kipfer thing. My word. I knew he had always been babied, but I never realized to what extent. Is it any wonder I never told my parents when I was in the middle of the abuse happening? They would never have protected me, believed me. And my brother would have gotten very mad. The abuse would have been so much worse for me. These are my parents. I think what hurts the most is watching Dad and Mom in all of this. They are totally there for my brother, while I am left in the dust. How unnatural is that? They should have to work at forgiving and loving him for what he did to me. It shouldn't be hard for them to cry for a small, innocent child who went through all that hell by herself for years. They ought to come alongside me. Instead, they're right there by my brother, physically and emotionally, showing him in any way they can they're so sorry. Carolyn keeps opening her mouth. They're being a support for him as he goes through this trial. August 11, 2008. This morning, Charles called Brenda and left a phone message about how sorry he is he got upset. She called him right back and said thanks, but she would like to talk in person, face to face. He told her he and Dad had talked and that was all that needed to be done. Dad had told him he doesn't have to talk to her. Brenda said, "So between you and me, you won't agree to talk in person?" And Charles hung up. Brenda called the folks in the afternoon, and they agreed to talk with Brenda. She told me it went badly, and she also lost her parents. They're upset now that she won't let it lie, and they said Charles was right to hang up on her. Can you grasp that? These are our parents. Our adult parents who have gone through tremendous hurts with church life. Now they sit there coldly saying, what my brother has done and how he's acting now is normal behavior. Brenda cried and cried. I'm scared. Why are Mom and Dad protecting him at all costs? The next day, August 12th, 2008, I talked to Darlene on the phone. She said she thought I had instigated this whole thing. She stated she was relieved I hadn't. There was so much I wanted to say. But all I could say is that we have to forgive. She said she hopes the folks get home okay because we need them in Ontario for their support and to be mediators between the siblings. The more I find out about Charles and Darlene's relationship with Dad and Mom, the sicker the whole thing seems. I know something is not right. Marvin's worried this will send me over the edge. But this time it's different than it was 20 years ago. Now I'm not fighting the battle alone. I told Brenda how it's not fair that she's caught in this for my sake, but she said I was in the battle for many years and now it's her turn to fight. Dad called Brenda and asked if their fax machine works. Dad went on to say to Brenda that maybe he had not given the best advice to Charles. Brenda told him she is glad he phoned. Dad said, I don't want to bring any more hurt to the family. And Brenda told him she doesn't either. It seems strange Dad called and not Mom. That rarely happens. Mom saw Brenda lose it last night, and she hasn't called her to see how she's doing. That's not like Mom. She's always been interested in our lives. If anything out of the ordinary happens, she'll call the next day to see how we're doing. I'm still feeling flabbergasted that Dad and Mom were so cold and have literally disowned Brenda. Brenda! Of all people! She has always held their respect and love. Whenever Brenda spoke, they would listen. How can 34 years be taken away in a flash? Just for her wanting Charles to be accountable to someone. How can she suddenly be treated like trash? And as though anything that comes out of her mouth is evil. I'm blown away. Never in 100 years would I have guessed this. Why does Dad think we would want to hurt our own family? How does he think being open about past sexual abuse will ruin us in the current day? This could pull us all together, and we could have a positive influence on many other families. Quotation marks. You're tearing the family apart. Unquote. How are we tearing the family apart? By speaking the truth? We've never been a particularly close family, so what exactly is being torn apart? People looking on at us might think we're close, but most times we're together, we end up fighting. Charles and Merlin have always been jealous of the relationship we four youngest children have together. Maybe that's why they pick on us, especially pick on Brenda and me. Being me, I don't take it calmly. They degrade our dresses. They talk about the way I dress my children. They degrade the way we ladies have too many opinions. Why, before Brenda was married, they called her a feminist and said she thought she was too good for any guy. We've learned in the past couple of years not to say anything when they start in on one of their pet subjects. One of the last times we were planning to get together, Mom said she didn't want to do it at all if we were going to fight the whole time. That's really sad. Her oldest child is 40 years old, and the youngest is 25. And she had to say she didn't want to be together if all we were going to do is argue. When Brenda, Gerald, Suzanne, and I are together, it's a totally different story. We don't always agree, but we respect each other and allow one another to disagree respectfully. We love to bounce ideas around, and we can talk about issues that truly matter. As with any normal relationship, there are times we get upset at one another, but we'll talk it out. We'll say we're sorry. We can hug one another. We don't stomp around and mutter over it for 10 years. We treat each other as adults, not childishly. August 18, 2008. 5 days later. We were in New York over the weekend. I went to Mom's on Friday by myself to talk with her. I want so desperately for her to hear me, to cry with me, and love on me. I told her I feel that healing comes by talking. I asked her if she didn't notice a change in me since I got the counseling. Mom said, "No, should we?" That made me cry inside. 2 days later, August 20, 2008. I've talked to Mom a couple of times on the phone since we were together, and it's like nothing ever happened. That's weird because I know she's thinking about it. I'm thinking about it, yet we can't say anything. I would love to ask her how things feel by now. But I remember her saying she doesn't want our conversations to be about that. So I don't talk, but it's always there between us. Arrgh! Growl. August 21, 2008. I told Brenda we're like the Kipfer family. We know there are strange things going on, but we never talk about them. We just get together and smile. How strange is that? It's not how a family should be. A week later, August 27, 2008. Brenda called Gerald and updated him on what's going on. Gerald told Brenda he had seen Charles abusing me at different times. I wanted to cry. That poor little guy. Sometimes I feel like I'm dying inside, and like I'm that girl again. The one who wanted to tell someone, but was scared they would have the same attitude Mom and Dad have. Just to let things rest. It's much better that way. We won't create any scenes, and if we don't think about it, maybe it's not there. In my mind, it would be so freeing for my brother to be accountable to someone. I know it's only me, little Carolyn, speaking. But do you who are reading this know and understand the seriousness of this? It's different than throwing a tantrum or being insecure or being precious, Charles. Do you have any idea how good it felt to write that in my journal? It feels so good to be able to write just how mad, hurt, or any other feeling I'm feeling. Back when I was a child, I couldn't write anything. It was so smothering. Nothing about my brother. That was part of my death inside. August 28, 2008. Mom told Suzanne the whole family would be much better off if I had not talked. She claimed I didn't remember I had been abused until Charles apologized to me back in 2001. That's not true. I did remember. I still do. It's horrible to think you're finally having a relationship with your own parents, only to realize it's nothing. My gut feels sick. Seriously, if anybody says, I knew this would happen, I'll scream, I'll bite, I'll pinch, I will become that demon-possessed person again. Because I feel like my whole body, soul and spirit are being shut up in a prison with the devil. When you're with the devil, you act like a demoniac. Would people say I'm not a Christian? I know I am. But the demons are so close. It's so easy to become that girl again who had no voice. So long I couldn't talk, speak, or write. But then I found my voice. Freedom. Greater freedom was just around the corner for me. The one who abused me, controlled me, would now have to talk. I would not worry about some other little girls getting hurt. Freedom. But the devil came in the form of a dove and made people think that to make the wickedness stop, you do not talk about it. Again, blackness descends. The devil claps, and heaven weeps. Mom and I were talking on the phone today. I was telling her I would like to talk with Charles and Darlene about the abuse, to try to bring healing. Mom said maybe I need that, but Charles doesn't. She said she doesn't want to hear my stories. Then she asked me, how would I feel if my daughter wanted to tell me some things that had happened in our home? Later, I remembered, she had said another time she had wished I would have come to her while it was happening. All I feel like I would like for Mom is for her to put her arms around me and cry for her little girl. I'm not trying to say they were bad parents. I want them to know I love them. But I can't stay in my unreal, hidden world. I will continue to walk where God wants me to walk in this journey. Is it too much to want them to walk with me, supporting and cheering me on? Sometimes it's very lonely here. August 29, 2008. Gerald called today. He and I have never talked about this. So we both asked how the other was doing. He said he had called and talked to Mom. Mom doesn't understand why the whole family has to be involved. Gerald told her it's because that's the way a normal, healthy family is, all involved. Mom feels what Gerald says doesn't have a lot of power because he's not a Christian. She said she and Dad won't listen to Suzanne's perspective because she is not a believer. They won't listen to Marvin and me because we have not forgiven Charles. They won't listen to Mike and Brenda because they're too dogmatic. Well, then who will they listen to? Charles. Six weeks later, October 12, 2008. Tonight was the Thanksgiving hymn sing at New Hamburg Church. I feel like I must talk to my brother. I was crying through a lot of the songs because the words seemed to fit my heart. I know I'll bring the wrath of my parents down upon me, but I must talk. I feel like all I did all those months I was under conviction. so uneasy and so pressed. I must do this. We had the New York church families come for the weekend. There were 26 of us in all. They all bunked here at Mom's. I crossed another milestone. Marvin told the men about my sexual abuse. He asked them to pray for us because we want to go face my brother to talk about it. The most amazing thing to me is that not one of the men got mad at me or told me I should not be talking or said they simply didn't believe me. One week later, October 20, 2008, Gerald called me and said he's sorry he didn't tell Mom and Dad when he saw Charles abusing me. I told him I don't blame him at all. I feel so badly this little guy had to see me crying and pleading with Charles to leave me be. In Gerald's mind, he thought I was being killed. No child should have to watch that and try to figure out what's happening. Marvin and I went together to talk to my brother. He got angry and did not want to see us. I was scared at first. I have seen his anger up close. I said to him, all I want to do is talk about how you hurt me. What it did to me as a developing child. I want to look him in the eye and tell him I forgive him. I have always felt scared of him. To be able to sit in the same room, eye to eye, and not see a monster, but a hurting, crippled man was powerful for me. I pleaded with Charles to find healing. I tried to tell him there's freedom in talking, turning around, helping someone else. I told him not talking makes him into a wimp. People would respect him if he could admit what he'd done and then say how Jesus had healed him. There are hundreds of thousands of young people who are abusing innocent children. He could throw out a lifeline and tell them they could stop. He didn't get it. He thinks all that's needed is to just say you're sorry, and that is the end of it. I wish I could free him from his prison, but he must want to get out. All I know is this is one more step of healing for me. Now I can go forward, knowing Charles has no more control over me. I can look and see him only as a hurting 40-year-old man. This week has been wild with phone calls. Mom is very upset that I needed to talk to Charles. My children have been seeing me cry, and it worries them. I'm living in a real world now. I sat down with Austin and Shantae and told them their Uncle Charles hurt me very badly when I was a little girl, and he was my brother, big brother. I told them I'm trying to heal from it and get better, but that some of my family are very angry with me right now. October 30, 2 weeks later. Austin talked to me like he never has before. He said everyone calls him stupid. I know I did it. I'm sorry, Austin. He said he feels slow and people get mad at him that it takes him longer. I need to remember the most important thing is to be there for my children and connect with them. I could imagine Austin drawing away from us and becoming an abuser. He has so much anger inside him. Dear God, help me be a mom to show him love. I love him. Together, we four youngest, Brenda, Gerald, Suzanne, and I, went to Mom and Dad. Want to get together with Mom and Dad. Our hope is to heal the rift between us. I do love my parents. Why does speaking truth scare them so much? One week later, November 8, 2008. Marvin and I are working on another adoption. We have to go to 4 sessions, and the one today talked about sexual abuse. I could look at the video clip of children talking about being abused, and I didn't have a meltdown seeing it. When it was done, I looked over at Marvin and said, I must keep telling my story. Why? He asked. We went out for lunch, and we talked about it. I told him I'd be honest with him. I said I didn't feel like he was standing behind me and trusting me. I want him to support me and trust me. I am not a child. I'm 32. It came out then that when I say I need to tell my story, he gets scared. I will include what I told my brother. Am I really that nuts? What I told him was just for his ears, because he was the abuser. The point is not telling the details of the abuse, but to say how I have been affected spiritually and emotionally. There is healing in talking to someone. Dear God, what is wrong with Austin? He says we don't love or understand him. I'm so scared he'll become a troubled teenager. Even though he tells me he was not sexually abused, I believe I'm going to start to treat him as though he was. He has so many of the symptoms. The uncontrollable anger, curling his feet under him, making his hands into fists, his whole body tense. I told him every time he gets upset or I see his body doing that, we're going to go into a different room and talk together and pray about it until he relaxes and I feel he has calmed down. We can talk about what caused him to get angry and how God can fill his life with peace and love, even though he's hurting inside. I told him his dad and I love him. And he's not here just because. God has an important work for him to do. Page 60, January 2009. Nothing is happening. What should be done? I want to protect other innocent children, but most people don't see my brother as being a threat. What about his own children? We have cases in front of our eyes of men who sexually abuse their sisters, their daughters, and then their granddaughters. But that doesn't even get them up off their chairs to protect other innocent children. What is wrong? Where are the older people who can give answers and show us what needs to be done? All they do is try to make us shut up or shut down or tell others it's not true what we're saying, or they stay quiet. So here we younger ones are. We must trod an uncharted path. Maybe we're not always making the right choices, but we're sure doing our best. Sometimes it's maddening that we have to make all the decisions and try to figure out all the missing pieces and connect them. I'm determined to break this chain of sexual abuse within my family. I want to weep because of those who with open eyes continue the chain. I can do something about me, though. February 9, 2009. Marvin got me a book called Woman, Thou Art Loosed. It's about healing the wounds from the past. I started to read in it. It talks about having the taste of fear in your mouth. I started to cry because I know what the author is talking about. We're having a couple from church come tomorrow evening to see if they see the seriousness, the long-term effects of sexual abuse of children. Maybe they can help my brother. I'm scared that they won't hear us, and it will all be made to look like I imagined it. I'm afraid they could take him at his word. Sometimes it's hard to face life and deal with things. When I know Marvin thinks I should be taking steps forward, he can't figure out why I don't make progress. He's tired of this always coming up, circling around, the craziness of all this. Now Marvin's on the phone talking to a minister about this very subject because something happened in their church and they would like to know how we handled it. I can't hear the whole conversation, but I can guarantee you Marvin is telling it straight. That's the way he does when he talks to someone who is not involved with my brother or me. He can say how it has been for him in our marriage, and he can say what he has had to work through. But once I open my mouth, he starts claiming I haven't been healed. The next day, February 10, 2009. Well, I feel like our evening went well. I'd still like someone who heard my brother's story and mine just to say, Carolyn, I believe you. At first, they said our stories didn't jive. I said right back that they never have. The man agreed that keeping things in the dark does breed more darkness. Why do people at their church have such an apathetic attitude toward sexual abuse of a child? Who understands the severity and does something about it? We must start working now and helping before the children are abused, not waiting until afterward. Before they left, the couple said they are glad we're not seeking revenge. In one way, that's funny, but in another way, it's not. Do they not realize that if I had wanted to kill Charles or land him in jail, I wouldn't need any help to do that? Austin came to my bedroom with a pencil and paper. By the way he held his body and talked, I could tell he was feeling good about himself. He had been drawing a diagram of a dog sled he wants to build. I don't want to minimize his dreams. If I do, he may start to feel like they aren't worth anything. Then he might begin to hurt himself and others. Ever since I've started treating him as though he is a sexually abused child, he has calmed down. The first couple of weeks were emotionally tiring because we were going to another room 3 or 4 times a day. Shantae was starting to get worked up. She said I didn't spend that much time with her, so I've tried to have a couple of mother-daughter moments, too. I cannot fathom how people have large families. How do they ever connect with each child emotionally? we've dropped our adoption plans. Partly because we've decided to move to New York this summer, but also because I don't feel like I can handle bringing another child into our home right now. My hands are full right now with our 3. And I don't think it's worth it to adopt just because it's something that's expected. I don't want to lose the children we do have. I know people raise their eyebrows and ask, "You're stretched with 3?" But I am. And I have to acknowledge it. Right now, we have enough issues with our extended family and with my Austin. I'm glad I can sense Austin calming down. It's been all a stab in the dark. All I can say is thank you, Jesus. A week later, February 17, 2009. Let's see if I can write about last night. Maybe if I can get this episode on paper, it will help to heal all those times I should have written but didn't. It started when Marvin was on the phone in the evening. That's not at all unusual, but I could tell by his tone of voice and the snippets I could hear that it was another call about sexual abuse. After an hour and a half, Marvin hung up. Here it had been a guy we used to know, the one who thought if you were abused when you were 10, it was no big deal. He figured then that there was no reason you should have to work through that. Now here's Marvin telling him my story. Who gave Marvin the okay to tell anyone, just anyone, what happened to me? He doesn't want me to be talking about it. It's like Marvin is this 34-year-old who has the discretion to tell it only to those who need to hear it. Yet Carolyn is this 11-year-old who was hurt hundreds of times more beyond what he can fathom. Yet she must keep her mouth shut. Marvin wants to know what's bothering me now. So I told him. He does not understand. I tried to get it across to him how he can tell people. I would like his blessing to be allowed to tell anyone I want to. He said back to me, "But you say you could stand up in a church and tell everyone." I could see you doing that too. So, what would be wrong with that? Can I not say what God has freed me from and throw out a lifeline to help someone? How can he be the only one who has sound judgment, even though this is not his story? He wants me to be a woman loosed from her chains. But it seems like that won't happen until he says, "Carolyn, tell your story, wherever, to whomever." Shout it from the rooftops. There must not be a clause. Use discretion. Or be careful, though. I went to my bed and pulled the covers over me, but inside I felt completely empty and dark. I felt hollow and cold. I felt I was no longer in my body. After a while, the tears came. Then I thought, so what's the big deal? If I don't think about it, it never happened. Tomorrow's another day, and there's lots of people who have life a lot tougher than I do. I know now that what I experienced every time my brother abused me it's no wonder my body and mind shut down. It quite amazed me as a 33-year-old to experience this. Much less imagine being a young child, experiencing it over and over and over again. February 20, 2009. God, my lips need to be freed to speak. I'm still so scared. I'm scared that someone I love will look at me with disapproval. I'm scared that my parents, who I still want to love me and approve of me, will yell or make me feel unimportant, unworthy to be deemed an adult. I still feel angry with Marvin. What's wrong with me? When he came home from work, a terrible surge of anger came up over me, and I had to leave the kitchen for a while. I don't want him to know how I'm feeling. He would be so hurt. One thing working through the sexual abuse has done is free my emotions. I never had to struggle with anger like this before. I could stuff it deep inside me and turn the valve off. Bingo! No anger. Now that I can no longer disassociate myself, I cannot do that. I know this way is much healthier, but it's so much more painful. March the 5th, 2009. Brenda called this morning, wondering what I think about our family. I have distanced myself from them, at least from Charles, Merlin, Dad, and Mom. My parents are talking to me again, and I run with that because for so many years I've felt their disapproval. In the last 8 months, I've seen their disapproval and anger up close. I want to stay in this distant relationship. To an outsider, it looks like a good relationship. But in reality, we aren't talking about things that really matter. Church things or family things. This family must talk. Maybe we should all get together this summer. We must get this aired, even though we'll rant. Lord, please show me the way to go about healing in this family.